not guarantee funding of grants. Yes, you need to have this statement, this clause, this terms and conditions inside your contracts for sure. This is an important policy because you can never guarantee funding of grants. This is so outside of your control because you are not the funding agent. Contracts are important to have with your grant writing services. This is where both your client and you agree to terms and conditions. You will want to ensure and have all the expectations from both parties clearly stipulated when work will get done, policies, cancellation clauses, payment terms, and scope of work. Woo, it's a lot, but we got you. Hi, my name is Rustick, and I'm the CEO of the Freelance Grant Writer Academy and the Grant Professional Mentorship, where we help aspiring and seasoned grant writers replace their full-time income on part-time hours writing grants from home. I find contracts to be liberating, actually, when done correctly, because they create your terms as a freelancer. Sometimes clients just forget what these terms are, so you need to remind them gently and neutrally. Just by doing that can overcome them treating you as an employee and for you to be able to have your boundaries. For example, if you have a policy that you will reply to them within 24 hours, Monday through Friday, do not feel bad if they give you a call Saturday morning and you don't answer that or return it until Monday. That is in your contract. And it also sets the boundaries and expectations from your relationship. If you answer that call, guess what? They're going to be calling you every weekend and every evening thinking you're going to answer and being more offended when you don't answer if you started answering in the beginning. But if you set the stage and you set the culture of your organization up front by leaning into your contract policies, then guess what? You set the culture of your organization and the expectations are clear and people feel safe. Yes, that is a true thing. People will feel safe when you have boundaries. And if your scope of work includes one meeting per month and writing 1 to 3 grants per month, you can say no to grant number 4 or other work outside of the scope of work because it's not in your scope of work. Inside the Academy, we have a sample contract with policies like grant lead time, communication policies, and so much more. Our students love it so much because it creates policies that they can lean back on for healthy boundaries. Here are a few of our favorite policies to include inside contracts. 1, we do not guarantee funding of grants. Yes, you need to have this statement, this clause, this terms and conditions inside your contracts for sure. And it might be like, well, of course we don't, Holly, but let me tell you, this is just going to save you a little bit. This is an important policy because you can never guarantee funding of grants. This is so outside of your control because you are not the funding agent, okay? But so many clients may think just because they hired you that your return on investment is getting grants awarded. Where your ROI is actually more rooted in is the work completed in writing the grants, helping them get clear on programs, and helping find new potential funders and partners. Of course, the end might be getting the grants awarded, but you cannot guarantee that. Just like in the way if they hired a website developer so they could have a place where they can get individual donations and the button secured and they're helping with build a campaign, they can't guarantee that you're going to reach the goal or get all the money from the individual donors just by creating the processes and by creating the platform. Another thing we like to have inside our contracts: payment terms. You must have payment terms within your contract, such as number 1, when you will get paid, number 2, how you get paid, number 3, what happens if there are late payments. When you get paid is important. It can mitigate the other things. You do not want to get paid when work is completed. You need to get paid before work begins, or at least a portion of the payment rendered then. Okay? Too many grant writers come into the academy and they've had their business for a while and they're so frustrated because their clients haven't paid them. And when I ask what their payment terms are, they say, oh, I get paid upon completion of writing, or I get 50% paid upon completion of writing, or that sort of thing. And guess what? I did all of my work and I didn't get that last payment or that payment at all. So simply mitigate the issue of late payments and not getting paid, you have a payment upon signing the contract to even get you started. I will not start work until I have the contract signed with the first payment, right? So that could be like if you have a payment plan where they can pay you in different installments, but you're always paying then before the next work starts again. Or a lot of you like to have retainers, and I love retainers. The first retainer payment is due upon signing the contract, so it funds me in advance. And that is just a simple term set up. How you get paid is also very important. Be very clear on how you collect payment. What we recommend is that you actually set up automatic billing for your clients so you get recurring payments on a credit card that you can charge. This is also helping to mitigate late payments or having to keep following up on payments. So that can be really important that you just keep charging them. You have their credit card on file and you just charge them automatically every month if you're on a retainer or a sort of payment plan. For anything under $5,000, I usually recommend just getting paid in one installment. However, smaller nonprofits, they may want to give a payment plan over a couple of months, but just make sure it's not past the time that the work is done. So if it's going to take you 3 months, then do 2 payments, $2,500 when the first upon signing the contract, and then $2,500 by the first of the second month, because you're not going to be done with the work until the end of the month. Late fees or stop work. You can also include late fees if they are paying you in installments. So for example, if they're due to pay you by the first of every single month, then maybe you give them into the third to pay you. If they still have not paid you by the third, then they start incurring a late payment. So maybe it's, $50 a day or a certain percentage. And then I would say don't have that going forever though, like have that stop at some point. I actually prefer just to stop work, but I also know like things get held up sometimes, but that's also why I say have the credit card on file and just charge there, and that's going to mitigate a lot of this. So if you stop payment, that means or you stop work because they're late on their payment. So let's say they still didn't pay by the third, maybe you give them a grace period until the fifth, then you actually stop doing work. And what you can tell the clients is be very clear about these terms and conditions. Talk about them in your onboarding, right? If we don't receive payment by like the 5th, then what we do is we stop work. So if there's a grant due on the 15th, guess what? That grant may not get submitted, but we're going to still charge you as one of the grants that we have written for you in our contract. So yes, put a little heat under them, right? So you definitely want to make sure that you communicate your policies and your terms from your contract, that they just don't sign it. Don't assume they're going to read the whole contract. Talk about these really big terms as well. All right, here's another favorite one that we love from our contracts is grant lead time. We highly recommend including grant lead time on grants. For example, what is your policy around how much lead time you need on writing a specific grant? And this could look like 3 to 4 weeks lead time to write a foundation grant, 6 to 8 weeks to write a federal grant, 4 to 6 weeks to write a state grant. So you can kind of think about how much lead time that these grants need, because you don't need as much lead time necessarily to write a foundation grant compared to a federal grant, right? There's a lot more that goes into that. And why this is so important to have lead time, like, ooh, please do this, everybody. Your clients will throw grants at you at any moment. You'll be setting up your plans for the weekend. You've got your bougie time with the girls, going to lunch or whatnot, or having, out with the kids, all of the things. And guess what? Your client throws you a grant Friday at 4:55 p.m. and is like, oh my gosh, this grant is due on Monday at 5 p.m. and it's perfect. And it usually is a perfect grant. And guess what? You might be like, oh gosh, I need to write this because they're sending this to me and I'm on retainer with them and they pay me and da-da-da-da-da. And all your things come up and all your people pleasing and all of the things, right? And then you cancel your plans. You're up till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., both nights of the weekend. And guess what? You write a really bad grant because your brain's not there. It's writing under pressure. The nonprofit, your client hasn't sent you all the information. Like everyone's just gunning for this application to get in. That's not the best way to write a high quality grant, for sure. So, and it's not good for you with your boundaries. Like you can't operate like that when you have multiple clients just throwing you at. That's why you're not an employee anymore, okay? This is why you're a freelancer. So if you just simply put your lead times, I need at least 3 to 4 weeks. When you find out about a foundation grant, or if I find one, I need at least that much time before I'll even say yes to writing it. I need at least 4 to 6 weeks for a state grant. I need at least 6 to 8 weeks for a federal grant. And you can change your lead time based on what you know you need. Federal grants, so I would say sometimes it's harder to go over 8 weeks because they only get published usually 60 days out on grants.gov, right? So, but you can kind of see what's coming up sometimes in advance and start to prepare, but the actual applications usually don't come out until then. Of course, you can think about, should I have rush prices, Holly? Sure, you can put that in your contract too if you do want to have rush prices. I would say at least charge double if you're going to do it with under your lead time. Okay, just because you might have to hire a babysitter, you're going to have to like put off your plans, you may have to do other things. Like, it also impacts your health. Like, if you're up till 3 a.m, it impacts your other clients, right? So if you do say, no, I'm going to go ahead and take that on and it's less than my lead time, make sure you have some kind of rush time, or you say this counts as 2 of your federal grants, not just 1, right? So you do want to make sure that you have that in place if you do, but you don't have to either. You could just say, nope, I'm not doing it because it's not in my lead time and these are our policies. Do you see how much that's going to save you? And I know all you grant writers out there are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yes, it is. All right, so let's also talk about scope of work in your contracts. In your contracts, list out exactly what you will do and by when. Sure, you can keep things general, like 2 to 3 funding assets per month, which could include a 2-page letter of inquiry for a foundation grant and writing a newsletter copy, but list out all these funding assets of what they might include, and then clearly put how many you're going to do. Do not over-deliver on any extra items outside of your scope of work for your contract. In this way, it is very clear what you have both agreed upon already for the scope of work and for the pricing. All right, that's already agreed upon. You don't need to add any extra thingies, right? I know that if you could just focus on what you say you're going to do and do it to the highest quality possible, that's what they hired you to do, and that's what they're going to be inspired. If you don't do things very well and then you feel like you need to like add all these other things, like then you're just not doing your scope of work well. That's what we need to focus on and getting that better and more high quality. All right, so there are definitely more items to list in your contract, but these are some of the Academy members' favorite. So I hope you enjoyed this session on all about contracts for freelance grant writers, and even other types of freelancers can implement some of these things as well.